Hey guys, welcome back. We're on the Space Bro Show. It's Friday night after 10 p.m., and I have a whole line of fellow streamers and active Star Citizen players here that are joining me for this episode, this very special, informative episode, we hope, starting late as usual. We have joining, as usual with us tonight, Mr. Cato.
What's up, guys?
Yep. Also, as usual, we have Mr. Zealous Fox in the house.
What's up?
There you go. And tonight we have a special guest, which will hopefully be able to show up all the time with us. We have Mr. PR Stoutman here.
Hey, how you guys doing?
And, of course, one of my favorite pilots and longtime streamers, Mr. Eric McKetton, the
Hey, everybody.
ultimate pilot and teacher. I watched many of his training videos. It's really good.
Yeah, I haven't been doing much teaching lately. I'm waiting for things to stabilize so I can try that again.
Yeah, definitely. We look forward to more videos from you, Eric. I liked them. Actually, when I first got started, that's what I watched to get an idea to learn what I was doing wrong. So it made it better. So anyway, guys, tonight, pretty much the format's going to be as usual. We just kind of keep it loose, keep it simple. We're going to just kind of review what happened during this week, we had some good things happen. We had some great gameplay, of course. And then we had, we had a okay ATV, I'd say. It was a little long, I thought. And, I don't know, the RTV something was happening there. But, whatever. But, anything that happened this week, for me, I thought the most exciting stuff personally was probably the 10 for the chair. I'm always happy to see Chris Roberts. I'm always happy to see the questions out there. And, sometimes they're redundant, but we get new people coming to the game all the time. And other times they're pretty on point. And I think we had a good mix. This week... we were also able to get some great gameplay in with the group. I think everybody was in a big thing. We didn't get Eric in with us that one time, but
I tried. You guys were in, and I tried to stream snipe you, and I kept crashing out as soon as I'd get in there.
Well, we were having the same problem. We had like 6 of us trying to get in, and every time the 6th one would get in, the 5th one would get dumped, and then it was like so we were just constantly stacking, rotating in on that. So it was fun though. It was good to get in there, although. I think we kind of dominated the server, and we realized that we need maybe a couple more bodies able over 16 to get into these things to make it more fun. So, but anyway, so let's kick it off with there was the questions that were asked, and I don't know if anybody had any that stood out for them personally that they wanted to hit up, but on there, I really liked the ones where, which one was the thing? What happens when all players log off or leave a cap ship? And I think this is a thing that I know me and Cato have talked a lot about. What happens when, you actually log out if say you have your clan, your group on, say, like an Idris or something, and what happens whenever, everybody goes to bed or nobody's left on the ship or, all that stuff. So basically, if your ship's safe. And I know we've talked about a lot. I'd like to hear from Eric. What's your knowledge base on like what happens with capital ships and whatnot, or all that stuff?
Well, a long time ago. This was a long time ago, and I haven't heard anything big to contradict this since then. Mm-hmm. They said that capital ships or big ships. Well, I think they were talking about all ships in general. They would attempt to fly back to your location, to your home. Mm-hmm. If you got disconnected, logged off, whatever, while in flight, but the ship that would fly back would be a clone. Like, your actual ship would be safe, but a clone of your ship would fly back, so it would give people something to shoot at, so that, say you tried to combat disconnect, you're not taking away that other person's kill, but at the same time, they don't want to punish people who accidentally disconnect, so that was their thought. I don't know if that's still the plan or not. His answer on that was that your ship will not be reachable by live players, and a similar ship is supposed to be used for capital class vessels. So I don't know if that's the same plan or not.
Yeah, I think it's different. Go ahead, Cato.
That seems really weird because I always got the impression that the capital ships were going to be persistent, whether or not anyone was there or not. Mm-hmm. And they always kind of pushed the importance of making sure you're in a safe spot when you log off. I can see for short disconnects, ISP issues, that sort of thing, that they have some sort of system in place where you're protected somewhat.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they always gave me the impression that it was important that you essentially stowed all your stuff properly. Otherwise, people could log in and
Well,
steal
there's
it.
got to be risk, right, guys? I mean, we want risk. We don't want people like what Eric was referring to doing log-off skis, as we used to call them, where it's like, oh no, I'm going to lose something, and just disconnect and pull the plug last minute. We want people who take big risk and do something that might not be stupid, but would be irresponsible of them to do, to pay the penalty for that, or else it just doesn't have meaning in the game.
And that's exactly, Cato. That's why I always was confused about that, because my understanding was that capital ships were going to be persistent as well. But if they were going to be persistent, how were they going to do that? That situation they were talking about, where your ship would be a clone and it wouldn't really be your ship lost, and and then of course
that doesn't seem like persistence. Truly,
no, it isn't. That's just
to an extent. Yes, the asset is persistent, but be all end all, that's not persistence at the end of the day.
And I did hear discussion, and I think it was only on the forums. I don't think this was developers at all, but people discussing that maybe what they meant was that your ship would continue flying under AI power, but it would still be your ship, and so it could get lost. And that makes more sense to me.
And I've heard that before too from different people.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
that was my impression too. I thought, like, if you log off and you're not sleeping, your player actually becomes an NPC. Right. And then they will try and fly the ship back to a safe spot. If you're not there to do it yourself, the NPC will try and do that to get it to a safe spot. That way, okay, you have some sort of safety, but at the same time, it's like, how good is your NPC? Because they have the NPC leveling system that they're talking about now, and the players don't have that at all.
Yeah, we have no skill points on players.
Realistically, they'd have to implement some sort of leveling system. Otherwise, you'll have a bunch of dumb AIs trying to fly your expensive ass capital ships back to port. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of what people deserve, though. If you're going to go out and take the risk, then you should definitely take the hit. I mean, Stoutman, what's your opinion on any of this? Have you heard anything one way or another? What's your feeling about it? I know you're more aligned with the industrial side of things on what your gameplay's going to be.
So we're talking specifically about when you have NPCs or when you log out.
When you log out, what happens to your ship while flying? What you think? I'm reading up on what Chris said, but what do you think should be happening? I mean, what do you feel?
What I feel from what I've heard or what I've read is that if you go offline in your ship and you're not in a bed, the ship is going to fly towards the nearest starport or back from where you came, something like that. Mm-hmm. But if it's a multiplayer ship and the captain goes offline, I mean, what the hell happens? I don't know, because that would ruin it for everybody else. They need to continue on what they're doing, because what if your internet connection goes down for an hour, or you get Wi-Fi aggro, you got to log off. It happens.
Or you get banned from Twitch in the middle of your thing.
You need to be able to say something like, the crew could continue flying my ship. Something like that. Give them permission, or you turn into an NPC. Just do it. I don't know.
And I've actually heard that before too. I heard that it goes if you're the owner of a ship, because we all know from the PTU right now, if we steal somebody's ship or we get in somebody's ship and they log off or they recall a ship, that ship just disappears and you're out there left holding your dick. Basically, what happened? It just goes away. We can't have that in a persistent universe, because that's utterly pointless. Exactly what Stoutman's saying. The main thing I'm looking at with it is I could see, and I've heard even, I think it was Bearded CIG when we were just bullshitting about it in Discord, they said something about they thought the plan might be where if the captain goes offline, he turns into AI, and then it's subsetted down to the other players there, or something like that. He's still there, but he's not there, or something of that nature. My understanding was originally the smaller ships would just disappear and go safe. Similar to what happens as a combat timer in EVE Online. If they're there 10 minutes and nobody attacks them, nobody does anything to them, they just vanish. And when you log back in, you can log in that safe spot, as long as you weren't under attack or duress. And I think if that's not the plan, that should be, because I think having those combat timers, making sure you're out of combat and you're not trying to avoid combat, would be a good middle ground on that. But on capital ships, especially, we have to be careful with caps. I would think that you'd want to be able to make them fly back. You don't want them persistent. You have to have them persistent in the game.
Frankly, in my opinion, if you own a capital ship, and I plan on owning one, more than one. I mean, I own a Carrack, so that's pretty close. But a true capital ship, you better have planned out a way to have a crew on that thing 24/7, a live crew. And if you don't, you're asking to lose that thing. And that's my perspective on it. And if you don't have it set up like that, if you're not prepared to go in like that, then you are risk losing a hell of an investment. And
I agree. Even if it's NPC crew or real player crew, you have to have something. And if you're going to go in with nothing, then that's bad. Stout wanted to say something, I think, too.
That's if you've got an org sharing it and everybody agrees to it. If you just got one player who's got friends, you've got to be able to log out at least and get rid of, and the ship's got to leave the game. They talked about that. But when they were talking about being there all the time, I was hearing like Idris or bigger, not like a Carrick.
Right.
No, that's where we're talking like capitals. I think you need to do that for capitals.
They made their distinction with something like if it requires 10 or more players to run the ship, that's where they consider it to be a capital ship.
Okay.
So and then at that point, I think right now that's in Javelin and Idris range. Anything smaller than that isn't 10 or more. So
yeah. So
I got a Crucible, and I expect when I log out properly, it's gone out of the game and it's safe and it's there when I come back.
And I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think what they need to implement, if they're not planning to, I need to check and do a little research on it, but they need to have a combat timer. If you've been hit or you're entered combat within the last, say, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then it keeps you in the game. So you basically, say you're an industrialist and you're trying to be safe, you go safe. As long as you're safe that time limit, and you do that sort of thing, then boom, your ship can log off. There's no problem. That's great. But if you're an aggressor and you attack somebody, or you're trying to defend and you're trying to mine or you're trying to do whatever, if you're under direct combat, you cannot just pull your internet connection and then guess what? You're all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's 100%. That log off immediately, your ship disappears. I don't think that is. I don't think that's a good direction to take the game. Because
and I'm not saying that's what they're
exactly
doing,
right. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to do exactly what you said, because there's going to be ships that, honestly, they can't defend themselves. The only thing that they can do to defend themselves is to log off.
And I'll tell you
what, that's not fair to people. And I'm not sticking up for pirates, but at the same time,
that's what makes a game interesting is the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, wherever you're from, that's what keeps it interesting. And plus, there's nothing more satisfying to me than when a pirate attacks me, and then he's still got a combat timer going. He can't run away. He can't just do a hit and go. It's the same type of thing. So we have it both ways. But yeah, we'll have to watch that because I don't know. My biggest concern is Go ahead.
I'm looking at the INN transcript. This is why. If you guys don't know about Imperial News Network out there, you need to look up Imperial News Network. The address is Imperial News, all one word, .network. They do transcripts of all these things. They work their butts off to do it. And actually, what he said in there, and it's so much easier when you can read what he said instead of trying to listen to him. The big ships, like the Javelin, we determined that there's going to be safe areas you can put it in orbit or dock, and when it's in that safe area and you're logged off, nothing can happen to it. So you have to get that big ship to a safe location.
So that's good. You have the persistence still, but they're in a safe area. So that's nice having both.
Let's see. If you left your Javelin in an unsafe area, then maybe potentially it's not safe. It depends on how we're going to do it. So yeah, right now all they've got for certain is there will be safe areas, but there's no guarantee right now that if you're outside the safe area, your ship is safe.
And I'm hoping he stays that line because I don't want the language to be too hard or too firm on people. But at the same time, it seems like every time the subject comes up, which has come up multiple times even over the last year, it seems like they lean more and more towards, don't worry, guys, nothing will happen to your ship. You'll keep all your stuff. And the risk is what makes games interesting, and I think that's important to maintain. But you have to have clear rules. That way people know the risks they're taking, and they can be safe when they want to be safe.
Well, let me talk for a moment, guys.
Okay, go ahead.
You guys are chatterboxes compared to me. I got two things. One, they got ideas and theories how they want this to work, but until we've actually start implementing it and see how people do, because people are going to think of things that they didn't, so they're going to be adjusting it constantly for a couple of years at least. Yeah. That's the first thing. So we can guess all we want, and they can say what they want, but until we actually put it in and see what happens. And second, if you're like a captain of a big ship and you're flying along and you got a crew and your ISP goes down for an hour, you don't want to come back and have your ship destroyed or losing something because of a disconnect. So they're going to have to address that, I think, because people will get really pissed. Because otherwise, like Star Wars Galaxies, okay, your ship gets blown up, you just start over again. No big deal, you know. But then you could also have people that will turn their computer off to avoid losing the ship. So you've got to find a balance there.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the Independent Arbiters Guild is going to factor into things like that, because the idea behind or something similar. The idea behind the Independent Arbiters Guild was, part of it was investigating things like insurance fraud, people who would go out there and deliberately get their ships killed to collect the insurance money for their buddies or whatnot. And in a similar situation, your ship keeps getting blown up, and when you are logged off, they investigate and find out that you're combat logging. You're not going to get anything back for that. But say your ship got blown off while you were logged off, and it was a legitimate, it happened once, and it looked like your connection got disconnected improperly. Maybe they give you the ship back. Things like that. That's where those kind of moderation activities come into effect. But
they could do something. They could do something new and unique. Like if it's your ship and your connection goes dead, they could try maybe pinging your cable modem, your connection, to see if you're actually live or not. They could do something like that. That would be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting. I don't know how much resources that'd take up to do on a larger scale or anything, but I think that could be done here, because it's not as big a scale.
You wouldn't have
as
to do it.
anything.
You wouldn't have to do it that often.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But go ahead, Zels.
Start moving on to the next question.
Yeah, I know. It's like question 1, 45 minutes later.
Yeah, it's just such a fun thing to talk about.
It is, and I could talk all night, especially having Eric here and then Stout, and we all like to chat anyway. So it's like I try to give everybody their time too. So okay, the next one, and I'm not going to go question by question on this because not everything's really discussable in my opinion. The next one I wanted to talk about though was the selling and buying of used ships. I know they touched upon it, and I was like. And I'm a huge economy buff, and my thing is with that is the fact that I think it's important to have a really player-driven aspect to the economy in order for us to interact socially and stuff. Now, I understand in Star Citizen, it's 90% NPCs. You're not going to influence or control the markets like we were able to in EVE Online, where we could really just clusterfuck, for a better terminology or anything, the entire market. We could buy everything and then hold it, and nobody else could have it, and they'd have to meet our demand prices or go out and mine it themselves. In this scenario, we're talking about buying and selling ships, and, I guess somebody asked about if we'd have a used ship dealer or something so you could get discounted ships.
Well, they talked about having some type of legal system, like a DMV that would transfer title, so the insurance would transfer. So if you're going to sell, a legitimate owner sells it to a legitimate buyer, they work out there's going to be some type of something to transfer the cash from bank account to bank account, because we're not going to have cash.
System or something,
and then you get the ownership transfer, so the insurers will follow. LTI, I don't remember if that's going to follow or not.
It does. It stays with the ship. It stays with the ship. So
that's right. They did just say that.
The LTI ships you buy now, if you resold them to another player, or if you're able to, they'll increase in value because the availability won't be there for somebody later on. So that's a huge deal too. But yeah, the main thing we're looking at with this was when he hit upon the used ship thing, it brought up the economy again. And they talk about I'm okay with the taxes, and I'm okay with any type of fees or anything and transferring assets and stuff. But I really want to hear more about what you guys think about some of the things that Chris Roberts said, even not only in this one, but in previous episodes, where he's talked about player restrictions, like limiting how much you could trade between people, or stopping people from trading certain amounts of money or things like that. I think
that's to prevent gold sellers from saying, "Bill, I want to buy 1 million credits." You can only transfer so much. You can only buy so much credits on the website too. So you can't just buy a million credits and buy a ship.
But how's that stop gold selling? Because I know where he's going with it, but at the same time, I don't think it's a fundamentally solid idea, because it has some flaws in it. But go ahead, Eric.
Well,
let's see what you were saying.
You said you're an economics guy. I'm a no longer, because I haven't renewed my license, but I was a certified public accountant. And
I got questions for you off there then.
Yeah, but so here's how the way he has loosely explained it in the past, and I think the way it's probably going to be done is based a heck of a lot on how accounting principles are done with transferring large sums of money right now, and that's in the real world. That's that I transfer a large sum of money to you without an equal amount or a roughly equal value transfer made back to me, that sets off flags to the IRS right away. Now, those flags don't mean anything 9 times out of 10. They don't investigate it. They don't look into it other than they say, oh, look, this happened once, but it happens twice, 3 times, 10 times. Then the IRS starts investigating, and there are limits. If it's below a certain limit or it only happens once, and that's about it. They're just going to look at it and say, okay, it's taxable transfer. They paid their taxes on it. That's all we care about. And he's talked about that they are going to have some form of fraud investigation built into the economy, whether it be actual real people, even players, or something built into the programming that checks for that.
I've done stuff like that.
Right.
Writing software what you want to do is you want to log everything, and then you can start have every night you can just run like some batch jobs or some cron jobs that just check and look for patterns, and you change your pattern algorithms as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's fine. My biggest concern is the fact he uses the words like not only taxes and tariffs and things like this, but restrictions. And the only reason is because I know they're doing a max cap of like how much UEC that you can purchase either per day, per week, whatever. And I'm fine with that. But let's say like my organization, Overwatch, is a mercenary group, right? And say we want to take a certain fee from another group or whatever that maybe it's 1 million UEC for a week-long contract protecting miners, or it's a special assassination type setup where we're supposed to go hit a certain org or guy. My concern is that's going to come into play where it's going to restrict the amount of fees or the stuff I could charge as an org or a player because we can't transfer this. We're hitting the cap limit. It's almost like we're in the NFL now and we have salary caps on stuff.
And that's why you do, again, what you do in the real world, which is you set up slush funds and you set up alternate accounts. Yep. And so instead of them paying all of it to Overwatch all at once, or one person to Overwatch all at once, they pay it through an escrow company that maybe even Overwatch has set up through other accounts. And, then they make monthly payments or whatever the limit is, they make it in that form. And then that gets dispersed back into Overwatch. But I also think that when he's talking about these limits, he's focusing more on individuals than he is on orgs. Yeah. And I think orgs are going to be treated much like corporations are in the real world, in that an org is going to have a separate set of economic rules from an individual. And that's going to be an interesting thing to try to balance out too, because that's, from EVE, that's where you get the power in EVE, is the corporations have a whole different rule set than individuals.
People will make one-man corps just to avoid that stuff and do that stuff.
And you do that in the real world too. That really happens in the real world. That's limited liability corporations. I've got a buddy who's got an LLC with his friend.
Doesn't that mirror exactly what a gold seller would do too? I mean,
absolutely. So, and that's where the idea of these fraud investigators that they're talking about comes in, and that could be a career choice. I mean, somebody like me, like I said, I have experience. I might end up becoming an economic fraud investigator in Star Citizen. As exciting as that sounds, it does sound exciting to me.
Economic supervisor by night. There you go.
They're gonna try a lot of things that they talk about, and I think they're gonna find some of them just don't work, and they're gonna yank it, or they're gonna tweak it a whole lot. It's gonna be trial and error because we don't know what players are gonna do, and we've got a lot of creative players, and we got a lot of older players who got a lot of experience, or just not little kids that are just used to playing Xbox.
100%.
We got guys that are 50, 60 years old, and they've like been a CPA or whatever. Yep. So they know how to do things, and it's going to be interesting to watch it grow. It's this year we're going to see all this stuff play out.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really great year for that. Yeah. And this is my final thought on this, and we'll move along. I know Zealous is back there poking at me going, you got to move to another question. The second question you're talking about. But no, the main thing for me is I personally don't think having a finite flat rate restriction on transfers and stuff is a good idea. I think using the algorithms you're talking about, using the other things there, because I don't think it does any good. I think you're gonna have the same ways to evade that you do everything else, like what Eric's talking about with being able to make our slush funds companies, all this other stuff. It's gonna look like the same thing to me as if somebody's paying me for like protection money or to enlist us as a contractor for a different job as it is for gold selling almost, because the amount of funds and stuff.
It's going to be try it and see what happens. A lot of it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing they're going to run into is the way the things they're trying to prevent. They're their ways of mitigating it are going to negatively impact the gameplay itself more so than the actions themselves. And
I think so.
They'll
find out that they can't get so tight on some stuff.
I agree. I think they have good ideas with the UEC restriction selling. That's one thing Eve never did. You could buy as much Plex as you wanted to and just totally fluctuate the whole economy. I think that's a great idea. I think having those type of restrictions along with a base algorithm plan is great. I think the more they restrict between player and player, I think the less immersion we're going to have in the game, and I think that's a problem. I know they envision a lot of it. You guys go out and mine, sell it to NPCs, do this. You guys go out and do this job or mission, you sell it to NPCs. I want to be able to work with Stoutman and do player transactions. I want to work with Kato and do player transactions. I don't want restrictions on that. I want to be able to do as much of that as I want, and that should be okay. So that's all I'm saying. So anyway, moving on down the line here. What was the other one we wanted to talk about on that? What? Oh yeah, that was the thing where they retouched on, and I know you guys have all seen the Pupil to Planet video. Have you seen that, Stoutman? Where it goes from the iris? Yeah. So they were talking about the Ticked asked, how will we be able to land on unexplored or uninhabited planets with populated planets bring you on autopilot? So, and he said this is dynamically changed, and this is the first time I heard about this as far as the populated planets being different, because before they were telling us, okay, that would be an entire automated process, right?
Yeah, they're changing it completely.
Yeah, they're changing that whole dynamic completely on it. They're going down to, now you would either go into like a, I don't know, it's almost like a landing procedure now where you go into a guided path, but you actually have to manually fly into that guided path, and you can work your way around inside that area or that AoE of the path through there all the way to landing. And if you go outside that area, then it would pull you back on track.
Yeah, I think either it pulls you back on track or autopilot engages like kind of a punishment. Like, okay, you lost your ability to manually control your ship. We're taking it from here.
Yeah, we'll take control now.
I mean, go ahead, Zealous.
The flight tower will forcibly engage your ELD landing procedure.
Yeah.
That's basically what happens.
Where they take control of it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine for immersion. Realistically, like in the future, I feel like there can be essentially air traffic controllers that are like, hey, you're doing some shit you don't need to be doing, so we're just going to take control of your ship and we'll land your ship for you, because obviously you're not responsible enough to fly your own ship.
Yeah, you've been drinking a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and take over this operation. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with the way he described that. I think that's an awesome system that they're doing.
Yeah, I think
because it gets away from the track style. You know, okay, it's a candid animation to, okay, you have some freedom, you know, and play around with it. Just don't do anything stupid, you know.
Yeah. And I love the fact, his quote there where he says, the moment you deviate outside of it, then the security flight control system takes over your ship and auto lands it for you to basically prevent players from doing 9/11 stuff, which is fly into buildings and grief other players. I was like, wow, Chris, just go right there. It's like, you know.
At least it didn't do option B, which was shoot your craft down with an orbital laser cannon.
Which normally, you know, me, a combat guy, I'm support all that stuff. I am so glad they don't shoot me down, because I fuck up a lot when I land. Annoying my thing and be like,
that's a lot worse
guys,
than getting.
I got this, and that'd be the end of that. What happened? Oh, I don't know. They just shot us out of the sky. That'd be the end of me.
It's better. That's a lot worse than getting a ticket in the ED.
Yeah.
Like you didn't ask to land, so we're gonna give you a ticket. Or you're parking in the wrong area, we're gonna give you another ticket.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, did they actually talk about fines too?
They haven't talked about fines yet.
Okay.
They've hinted around it.
Okay.
I don't have. I mean, unless Zealous knows something I don't. I don't have anything written officially.
Yeah,
I have
there was
had
some
devs,
rumblings.
I had
like,
have devs said stuff on the side like, yeah, we're considering, you know, doing this and that and all this stuff.
There's been talks of fees.
Yes.
Not
right.
But fines is what I'm interested in.
Okay, yeah, because I heard some rumblings. I'm not going to mention where, but a possibility if you enact that like auto landing, they have to charge you for doing that because some guy had to take time out of his life to sit there and land your ship for you. So now you got to pay his salary for a day or whatever.
Which is landing fees are supposed to be next to nothing though. But I think that's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's an
I
extra
think that's
service
a
you
great
could buy.
idea.
You owe that poor guy 50 UEC for making you.
Stout, what do you think about the landing procedure stuff?
I know they're going to nickel and dime us with the fees, but I think that's okay. You got to have some type of money sink, and it helps keep it realistic. So you've got to make a profit. I figure I'm going to be making plenty of money. I'm not going to worry about landing fees. I've got a Starfare, so I'm not really going to be buying much fuel for all my ships.
No,
so I'm not too worried about it.
Well, with the amount of ships we got with our small group, and we're all flying around, I figured that we're going to end up not only having to utilize all our guys' Starfares, we'll probably have to contract other people like you to get some gas too, because we got a lot of stuff to fuel. We'll be like, Stoutman, give us some gas over here, man. We need it bad.
You're just going to have to come to me. My fleet's going to be parked. I'm not sending my gas truck out alone to
we'll
go
pay you
get
an
blown
extra
up
fee, man.
for you.
Come on, we'll do it. We'll give you some extra coin.
You could just carry some jerry cans full of gas in your trunk or something, okay?
I'll come to you with the little.
Love at all.
I'll come to you with the little mini gas can out of the back of the trunk of my car, the like half-gallon one you get from Quick Trip to like refill your car. I'm like, bro, I just need you to fill this up so I can get that ship started up.
You're gonna need your quarter.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, you're gonna need your.
I'm back.
Welcome back, Eric. We were just talking about the automated landing procedure and stuff that he was talking about there. Where I actually think it's not a bad idea. I like the fact they're going to have now, instead of just straight, okay, it's a populated area, they take control of your ship. You can fly it yourself. If you fly inside the fight path, if you go outside that, they're going to take the balls of your ship and the noose, and they're going to say, let's do this for you. And I hope they charge you for it too, because if you're just
I like it because frankly, I don't think the automated landing system we had now has ever landed without crashing me. I do it all.
It works good for me. It works good for me. You gotta know how to use it.
You got to be patient, and that's the thing. I'm not patient at all. I hit the thrust on it, and I just run right into the deck, and I'm over. That's it every time.
Yeah. I can do it in like a tenth of the time it takes the automated system to do it, and with far less damage.
Well, so I don't know about that. Sometimes I put it right through the side.
At least
decoupled mode.
Tell you how to do
Go
it.
Decoupled.
There we go.
Let me tell you how to do it.
Do you remember? Do you remember what it was like when they were just put it in the automatic landing mode?
Oh yeah, and it tried to land you at full speed every time.
It's like it just body slams.
How would you do it, Stout? I want to hear what you were.
Okay, get more or less lined up, pointing at the one that you want to land at. Okay, let's say we're at a Cryastro where there's a bunch of them. You're gonna want to either, if you're really close, stop. If you're far away, just slow down. Then you hit your N as a Dancy key. That goes into landing or weapons. So you go make sure you're in landing, and then M for manual or automatic. Make sure you're in automatic. At that point, all the landing pads are supposed to be those little blue circles with a V on them or something. Sometimes they're bugged and you only get a few. But generally, you use the Y key to cycle through and get the one that you want, and then you hit the middle mouse button to actually say, I want to do that one. You've got to be close enough, and you can't be too high. And then at that point, it's going to stop you. And then you just strafe in or just go really slow and just fly right towards it. And then when you get close enough, it'll automatically take care of it. It's really not that hard. I see
by that point, I've fallen asleep. So that's my problem. It's like, or I've hit the thruster and I've run through the side of it because it does. You're right. I think on the bigger ships I'll probably use it more, but on the small ships I like to just kind of put it down there.
Well, I had a Mustang to begin with, and I broke the thing every fucking time I landed it. So I had to use auto land, and I got used to it.
It's a Mustang, though. Those things were not meant to land.
But yeah, they aren't meant to land. They're meant to fight and die in the sky.
Those skids make absolutely no damn sense on that Mustang.
It's a racing ship. It's a racing ship. It's not made for anything else, really.
Part of the thing, Stoutman, is that, like Zealous was saying, a lot of us got burned and are gun shy about the automatic landing feature because when it was first introduced, it would slam you into the deck at full speed. Like it would just strafe straight down at your top speed and slam you right into it every time, and you just disintegrate. And so we all learned how to manually land so that we didn't have to deal with that damn thing.
There's a word for that. It's called alpha.
That's like alpha of alpha.
It was funny though, because we'd stack several ships up.
Yeah,
we'd stack several ships up above the landing pads in free flight and take turns engaging automatic landing, and they'd all come down in sequence, and it would look like they were just being dropped from the sky and pancaking on the ground. There was just debris everywhere.
Nice.
Nice. But yeah, remember to when you have that guy that does the EDL assistance mode. Remember to get your 20 credits for his tip and your space quarter for your parking meter.
The valet that is.
The valet. That's
no, but I seriously though, that announcement, that is one of the most exciting things I have heard from anybody at Star Citizen since they announced the procedural planets in general. Because what that means is, especially for the new people to the game, they may not know this. 2 years ago, it was impossible. Their exact words: impossible to do truly procedural planets everywhere, and also do free form or free flight landing, even in a landing tunnel. It just wasn't going to happen. There was going to have to be a loading sequence, and they were going to cover that loading sequence up by the landing tunnel. And that was 2 years ago. They did all that investigation, and what changed was they, Chris went over there and poached most of Crytek, and they came up with a way to do it in a couple months, thanks to I'm sure a lot to do with the person who is directing that section of Foundry 42, Stoutman's brother-in-law.
Yeah, Brian Chambers. He used to work for Crytek. He worked there for like 3 years, and he's got a bunch of the guys that were the engineers on the core engine. So they're now modifying the hell out of that thing to get it to work right, and they're doing a good job.
They're kicking ass.
They're going to have to rename it now because it's no longer even like CryEngine at all.
They call it Star Engine. Internally, they call it Star Engine.
They call it Star Engine. Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, between that, another piece, just on a side note, another piece of engineering that they've done really well that I really have to compliment them on, that's really apparent in the PTU to me, is the Jim. Jim does such a great job for the game instance manager, that little aspect. Yeah, because it really does well. And the party system, we're all desperate to have the party system actually work because we want to have everybody together, be able to pre-queue into an instance together. Yes. But I will say this, when we get into a game, I can get right back with Kato. I can get right back with Stoutman. I can get into that same group. And it is trying to group us based on contact. If he's in your contact list and I just jump in a game, I get more or less in with the instances with my contact list. And I don't even have to try. And so to see that this early, when they don't even have the party system working, is really, really good to me. Because that means when I go through the PTU and I'm going instance to instance to instance, more than likely I'm going to be with people I know, have some sort of contact with, or anything like that. And it's going to help with that whole immersion for our peers and just overall in the gameplay. Because everybody can't be in your party. You're at least going to be able to still maybe keep your fleets together. It's going to have other data put there where we're going to be able to scale this larger. And that's good to see this early in the game. So I just have to give them a real props on that.
Yeah, and to continue on with that, like, honestly, I think the GIMP, whatever you want to call it,
GIMP
is the GIMP is a great piece of technology that realistically I think a lot of different studios, could kind of learn from. I don't know. Like, I think it was kind of their baby. They kind of like explained it a little bit before they released it. They're like, hey, this is what we're working on. It's going to be pretty cool. Realistically, though, I think this was a huge piece of technology that they've been working on for a while. Yeah. And, they really wanted to work. And realistically, in my head, it's working better than a party system.
It is. And hopefully the party system, when they fully get that fixed, it'll work such in tangent with that we'll be able to not only maintain our parties, but like I said, fleets, and just keep on going from there. And then also, because there's people you want to avoid, right, but you might have an interface with, I want those people to find each other. I mean, you want hostiles to be able to find you. That makes the game interesting. But
this is the same
bounty hunting.
System.
You ought to be able to find people.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the same system, though, I think, that's going to manage instancing, not just server allocation, but instancing, right?
Yeah.
So they need to make sure that they have those affinities set up before they do this instancing. So like you and your buddies are flying whatever, and you go to a different zone, you know, you don't want your friends to disappear. Like it's definitely something.
You said the Z word. We're gonna get into that now.
Well, there's going to be stuff.
I was just going to talk about that too.
There's going to be times when you guys everybody's in the game, and you guys all decides to join a party, and then you say, "Hey, let's go here," and then you all go there at the same time, and it's basically going to put you all in the same instance for that station at that time.
And that's what Jim's doing.
Cool. Yeah, and you're going to have and your name's going to be a different color because you're in the party, so you can tell.
Thank God.
You're going to have party chat. They're just the basic stuff all the other games have.
CIG, can we get that online? I just want people in my party to be the same color as me. I'm not being racist either. I just want it. I don't care. I just want to be. I don't want to sit there. I won't want Eric killing me instantly if I'm in his party for some reason.
Oh, I know. Last night I was in several pitched battles on Korea, and I died more times to the guys that I was fighting with. That were on my team. Then I died to anybody else because we kept shooting each other.
Oh, wait till I put the highlight up from last night. We were fighting one guy that Kato couldn't even see. He was invisible on his screen. So Kato just spinning around, shooting aimlessly at everything, just like it was a Death Blossom from last Starfighter. Just like,
was that in the Connie or the Retaliator?
That
Neither.
Was he was in that's when we were all in Hornets and he couldn't see
I was
the
in
guy.
the Warlock.
And he's like, I
he
can't
was
see
in like a 300
so
or
he's
something.
just popping off the EMP and
saw
shooting randomly, and he's like disabling half of our guys. We got 6 people getting hit, not the guy that's fighting.
I was like watching where your rounds were going, and I was shooting in that general direction. I was like, dude, he's not there. He's not there. I don't know what's going on. That was the weirdest. Crazy. That was.
What do you mean, Cody? Sophie, this is Sophie Girl.
Yeah.
No, I am.
I will go ahead and say a quick point that Sophie apologized. She wasn't going to be able to make tonight. She went through the same thing I did. She moved her computer to another room. And so she immediately, when she did that, she's like, I have to go get cables and stuff. So she sent me 2 emails, one late last night and one today. She didn't think she'd be able to make it. She was going to try. And hopefully she'll be able to, come in for the next one because we really want to have her online too. She's great. She's great. And if you haven't followed her, you need to follow her as well as Eric and Stoutman and Kato. They're all great to do. Although Kato usually just does screen tests. But he's the best goddamn Star Citizen screen tester I've ever seen.
And Stoutman is the best new Star Citizen streamer, and he is going to, mark my words, Stoutman is going to be a streamer who is a household name amongst Star Citizen players in no time.
Yep.
I can tell you right now, just by the quality of his stream and the effort he's putting into it, and all that.
He does great.
There's no doubt about it.
I appreciate that. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and learning the software right now is frustrating. But when I get the OBS down a little bit better, then I'll start doing some cool stuff with CSS and JavaScript and animation.
I'll drink whatever this is to that.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Since everybody else is, I'm.
Did you guys hear that 2015 was SIG's best year of fund raised?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But we should give a shout out to them for that too. I mean, they did the best fundraising campaign, and they earned more money in that year than any of the previous
Yeah. Well, they got the 1.3 and 2 and 2.1, so people are seeing it's real now. And you could pay, download, and play in the same day. That's important.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, everything since Gamescom last year was just on fire. I mean, once they showed truly going out as a party in space, EVAing, doing the thing, and all that. I mean, that's where you started to see it really hit off. It was really good.
The EVAing around Korea with a machine gun, and you're like waiting for somebody to land. That is awesome, and it's just so beautiful. I get people who've never seen the game, and I'm doing that. They're like, "Oh my god!"
I die all the time because I just start looking at Crusader and the stars, and I'm just like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Oh wait, and I get killed all the time.
I don't know how many times I've done it. I've gone to Korea to pick up a gun because I'm going to do the other missions, and I want a gun just in case. And of course, my ship gets blown up by some guy named Mitauchi who comes flying in laughing, something like that. So I end up without a ship. I'm waiting for him to land so I can steal his, but he's smart enough to fly off and leave me stranded there. So I end up, and that's what I do is I just circle around the ring.
To enjoy the ambiance of Korea because it's so beautiful out there. To stay a while.
One night I was streaming, and that was my plan: is I'm just going to circle around the rings until somebody else comes by and steal their ship. Mm-hmm. So I'm armed, I'm circling. I look up, it's been an hour that I've been doing nothing but circling around these rings and chatting with my viewers. Not a single person has come back. And at this point, I'm afraid I'm the only person left on the server. But it was just that it was so beautiful that I didn't care.
Yeah,
you know, I was just enjoying the view and chatting with, and the viewers were enjoying just watching it and all the vistas.
You can always say something in chat, like I'll be at Korea, nobody's there, and if I like it, I'll be in my constellation alone. I love the constellation. I'll say Korea is my territory. Come take it. I'll just announce it, so people will come.
Yeah, people
just taunt them.
Yeah.
So, anybody excited for the Reliant being hangar ready soon?
I don't have a Reliance.
I got the news van. That's going to be cool.
See, I'm thinking about getting a news van next time because the news van, the one thing, and I've gotten some answers that I wanted on it, but the fact it can do ship identification is really interesting to me with the camera system because it locks on. You see that. I would like to see if I could mold that some way into a scout vehicle where you could go into a fray, identify who's there, and use it that. I don't see me using it for reporting news, but the fact it's bright yellow, they'll probably notice my scout ship then.
So basically, you're going to be like a diplomatic spy. You're going to be pretending to be the press, but really you're there spying on the enemy to relay that information
Something
to your
like
buddies.
that, yeah, because you're just,
I like that.
Hey, I'm just news, man. I'm just news.
It depends if the camera's going to be able to pick up people's names on the ships. You're probably not going to be able to do that. You can't just hit F10 on the camera.
They said that it will lock onto a ship with the camera, and it does identify them. And the reason they implemented that is for the racing following. So when they follow racers, they can identify the names of the ships and the people racing. So it's going to work that way in the PTU too. And I said, unless they change it, that would be a phenomenal scout ship. Because if you could come in at range, like see a mining group, and you could identify all the ships there, see everything, and then get out. I'm like,
see who's piloting those ships.
Oh yeah, who's out here?
That's the biggest thing. Is like, okay,
or what org it is. I mean, who's doing the mining op? I mean, you want to know? I mean,
we don't know if the org stuff's going to be on there, but like, say you're bounty hunting and stuff. If that's faster than going through and like target. If you could just like scan over the ship and identify who's flying it. I mean, that's gonna be awesome.
What about weapons loadouts? I mean, you could go all the way with this if they wanted to. You could if the longer you're on the field, the more details you get about the modifications of the ship.
Only one problem with that, Fred. Okay. Because you need certain scanners to be able to tell if they are using a real license tag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're using a spoofer, you need a better scanner to see past the spoofer. And that's something that I've also been thinking about. I got my Carrack for exploration, but it occurred to me not long after I got it that a Carrack would be a bounty hunter's dream tool or bounty hunter org's dream tool.
Yeah.
Because they have the Carrack as their flagship for their hunting fleet for the specific purpose that, in theory, with all those scanning things on it, it should be able to pick up ships and identify them better than whatever your bounty hunting ship, your Cutlass or whatever.
And that's something we need to ask Chris Roberts because that's the same thing I wanted to use Cato's Endeavor for because it's a full science platform, but it has a huge scanning array.
That deep space scanner, dude.
Can I identify what's going on in the whole system with it too, and set it up in a safe spot as a full platform for the fleet, and then we can find everything in the whole system.
Well, here's the thing that we aren't clear on though is. Do exploration scanners work the same as target identification scanners? Are those scanners going to be able to just pick up space anomalies, or are they going to be able to see ships and identify what those ships are, who's flying them? I mean, we don't know if those sensors are even the same type of sensors.
Yeah, and me and Cato had this conversation the other day. I want in my fleet a true scout ship. And I know there's ones where they talk about, this is a scout or that scout, but they're talking more airframes. They're talking about it's a body of a scout, but it has no scout sensors, no real, stealthing tech on a smaller vessel, no high evasion to just identify and get the fuck out. And that's why I was hoping there'd be a modification of the Herald 4 or something where you could get in, get the data, get the scan, and get out of the situation, and then be able to report back to your fleet what you've seen. But I haven't seen that yet, and that actually surprises me. I think that would be something pretty important.
It sounds like, if there was ever a stealth variant of the M50 would be perfect for something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be good. Yeah, cool. M50 with some nice scanners on it.
That would make me say nice things about the M50 because I have nothing else nice to say about it.
It's hard to hit.
It's hard to hit.
If you had one,
but you just got to hit it a couple times though. Really,
it depends. You hit it with a freelancer, you have to hit it one time.
That's the thing. It's like there's all these military style ships.
Yeah,
and we don't have any intelligence craft that we know of. We have data runners in the Herald, but like nothing that we really know gathers intelligence.
Well, there's no ship scanners on anything yet. There's going to be a lot of ships that are going to have scanners.
They talk a lot about scanners, but they just say they're for exploration and all this stuff. We haven't figured out if there's a variant, a module, or some way to refit them to that yet. And I'd like to know that. I mean, that's something we probably need to put that stuff. They talk about like the Tracker Hornet and these things, but how's that work? I mean, they talk about it as a command and control ship, not really a recon ship or a get in stealthily and find something and get out. It's not that type of vessel, and I think that'll be good.
Like the stealth ships, you've got to have your average fighter has got to have some type of scanning, and it's gonna be harder to notice them till they get closer. That's what it's going to be like. But you're still going to have some type of scanning for the EMP fields or for the radar.
Right.
What gets bounced back on the radar, how big of a face it has for reflecting stuff. So ships are going to have that kind of basic stuff. Then the exploration ships are going to have like longer range and stuff to scan for planets and to scan for like wreckage or just weird stuff, But then your average ship is going to be able to do some scanning. It does a little bit now, but you can't really control it.
I would like one that would have... I would be even happy with a scout ship that had absolutely no weaponry, totally naked, just had high evasion to go in and recon and be able to get out. I mean, I would be happy with that trade-off. Just something... Because intelligence is key to anything. But, okay, so Zealous has told me we're hitting on the 1 minute warning for our hour long. If you guys have to go or something, or if you want to keep going, I'm fine with it because I'm enjoying the conversation, but...
I'm good for a little while. My chat's okay. I got to give away. I've got a raffle for some channel credits, and then I got a raffle. I'm gonna raffle off
So make sure everybody's on Scoutman's channel too, so you can make sure that you're following along there. He's got some raffles and stuff going. Give him some follows, guys.
I'm doing some hanger flare that I'm doing at midnight California time. I've got a Titan. Or if you don't have a package, I've given Aurora MR starter pack if you want that
shit,
instead.
I'm gonna log on there.
Like three giveaways tonight, 2 ships. Yeah. And
I hit 500 followers yesterday. In fact, I just hit 600 tonight.
Yeah, great.
So thanks everybody at the channel. I got 46 people now. They're coming for the giveaways.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
I got to start giving stuff away because that's why they're here.
We understand. But
the chat's good. I think they're enjoying it.
Yeah, I did want to tap into the zoning thing because it's a common conversation in our channel over there with Kato and Zealous and everything. I'd like to hear Eric's take on it. We've heard Chris Roberts describe the zoning, how the zoning works, how it's going to work, and as far as a ship is an individual zone, and we can have X amount of players inside the zone of a ship. Space around the ship is a zone. The other ships are a zone. So my understanding from his original description is, let's say you have an Idris, and let's say the max cap in the zone, right, this aspect would be like 16, 24 players or whatever, right? Not including NPCs. Then outside that ship, you could have up to 24 ships or other additional zones within that zone.
Right.
And then inside each of those ships could be 24 people.
Right.
And that way. I know for a fact that's not the way currently the PTU works.
No, it is not. And in talking with people who have been working on the programming and stuff of that, the whole idea behind how the PTU works right now is that each instance we're in is their way of testing that zoning system. Because we're in a 16-player instance, that is one zone. Even though we're at Crusader or we're all the way on the other side of Crusader at Yila or whatever, we're still in one zone right now.
Yeah.
If we're all in the ship, we're all in the one zone that's the ship and that Crusader instance. But the fact that the server can run that and run another instance side by side, and that we can see that Mitauchi is on one instance. If I look at my contact list, it says you're online. You remember how before when we look at the contact list, if we're online or not, it would get all wonky. Sometimes it would say online, sometimes it wouldn't, even if you were.
Sometimes it does still, but it's way better than where it was.
But it's way better now. And actually, I watched this last night during one of my streams. It was actually really cool. I was trying to invite somebody to my instance, or to my party, and he was in a different instance. Mm-hmm. And it was showing him as offline. And as he left the other instance and said, "Yeah, I'm leaving now," it turned green live on my contact list and said he was online now. So that's cool. It actually live updated for the first time that I think I've ever seen it happen.
Yeah.
But that's part of what they're doing, is that right now, all that's going on is it's tracking these multiple instances. But the goal is that these instances can then be merged together and taken apart as needed. And then hopefully here soon, here soon, like in the next year, we're going to see a scenario where if you're on a 6-player server, or you join a server and it's 16 players, let's say, but throughout your time there, it drops down to 2 or 3. Rather than it just leaving you and the other 2 guy in that server, it's going to merge those 2 or 3 with another server, another instance that's also only got 2 or 3 players. Yeah. So now there's 6 on one instance. And
that'll be good.
That's the idea behind it. As of right now, 16 is their hard limit for spaceships in an instance, which is why that's what we're dealing with. Their hard limit for people in an instance right now is of 42 or 41, which is what they've pushed it up to on the ArcCorp. Yeah. So and the hard limit on spaceships is because of that physics crap that's going on in the background that's causing us to lose all these frames per second.
And that's another thing. The fact that it seems directly related, just from obvious deduction, that it has to do with the spawning of the NPCs of the comm arrays at this point in the action with that.
The reason we have issues is that, from what my understanding is, the CryEngine is not designed for a world so large. So what it does is it sends you everybody's data all the time, even if they're so far away, it doesn't matter. So they're modifying all this core code. They're slowly removing that. So you're only going to get the necessary information. That's why when you go to an array and you've got 6 or 12 ships spawning, suddenly everybody gets that information, and you get 3 or 4 people at different arrays. That's 3 or 4 times the information you need, and that's the lag. So they're working on it, but that's like redoing the whole thing, and that's a lot of work.
They have to create from scratch what's called a physics LOD, a level of detail setting, which all game engines have a graphics LOD, and that's where basically if you're looking at a wall, you don't see what's on the other side of the wall, so it doesn't render it, and that saves rendering power. Games that use heavy amounts of physics also put in physics LODs for the same thing. Great examples of this, I think, are the big open world games like Skyrim and whatnot. They are one of the reasons why they're hard limited at 60 FPS is because that's how they control their physics and script LODs to keep it from going wonky. And I don't know if you've ever played Skyrim over 60 FPS. Things go really weird, really bad. Yeah. And that was their way of doing it. Now, obviously, they're not going to try to do I don't think they're going to do a hard limit 60 FPS, but they are trying to come up with, from scratch, a physics LOD for CryEngine, and it's never had one before. So
they're going to have to put a distance of view, where a lot of games have, where you say I want to see far distance or close distance. So if you got a slower machine, you just turn that down so you don't see as far, and there's not as much for your system to draw. They don't have something like that really in there yet. You've got a little bit. You could do some of it in the user config file. You can't. I think you could, and you can do your field of view too. You get a wider field of view from the user config, but nobody's really doing it. And they have
a lot of data. I mean, even with them isolating, I mean, one of the questions here they talked about was when Banjo asked, it said, will the procedurally generated environments be the same for everyone, or will the system generate entirely new terrain each time we visit a world and stuff? And he basically went in there to summarize it and explain, no, if you are in that environment and you impact that environment, that data will be streamed to every single client all the way through. So everybody's going to end up getting that data. So go ahead.
That's an interesting idea they're going with. I would like to see that in practice and work. Yeah. Because Minecraft is a great example of this. They're using essentially the same system that Minecraft uses, which is seeds. The seed determines how the landscape's going to generate. Mm-hmm. So untouched, unspoiled, that planet will be the same for each and every one of us without having any data on it other than the number string stored in our memory. Yeah. So we fly up to it, it loads it on the fly as we get there, and you and I are sitting side by side. We're going to see the same thing, even though it's not saved as a file that says, planet Yila dot whatever.
Exactly.
But the moment you start changing it, it does save a file that is basically changes to Planet Yila. And I don't know if you've ever played Minecraft servers where a lot of changes have been made by players, but it gets to the point where they have to reset the server after some time because it doesn't matter how powerful your computer is, it can't handle all those modifications done, because it does save those.
Yeah, it doesn't release the info. It stores it on your current RAM too, and it's a huge RAM hog on you.
So I'm interested to see how far they're going to allow us to impact a planet and in its appearance. Mm-hmm. Because I know that, they want to do voxel-based asteroid mining and things like that. And, planets like Gila, for example, Gila is an asteroid for all intents and purposes on its size. It's a planetoid at most, a dwarf ice planet. And so if they want us to be able to mine those voxely, it'll be interesting to see how much they'll let us do and how much it's going to, affect the overall game for everybody.
I think it's going to be really limited anyway. I think it's going to impact a numbers game. Like, you'd go mine, and physically you wouldn't change the terrain of the planets. I'm just hypothesizing here, but you're going to be able to pull X amount of data or X amount of material of the planet, because they already said we physically, at this stage, will not be able to put buildings or do anything structurally on the planet because we won't be able to impact it in that way. So I think it's very minor changes, but it's exciting to open that doorway, and when he says won't be able to put structures on there right now, I'm like, ooh, can you imagine going and making a secret base facility on a planet? I mean, that'd be so awesome to be able to have stuff like that.
And that's how how it's probably going to work. Just guessing, because I know a little bit about procedural generation, but not enough to say this is how they're doing it. Mm-hmm. But I'm guessing what they're going to do is, let's take Nyx as the example.
Yeah.
The Nyx landing zone itself is a separate object or collection of objects that they put together that they could spawn into space without a planet around it right now. I'd almost be willing to bet money on that. And they could have basically a space station that is the Nyx landing zone floating in space. Now, what they do is they then procedurally generate the planet that Nyx is going to be on, the landing zone. And they find a spot on that planet they like for it to be, based on the terrain, and they place it there, but it's not actually physically placed there. It is a series of flags in the server itself that's, when you get close enough, triggers the LOD to load those objects on top of the planets.
Okay.
So that they are loaded like a spaceship. Like, if you land a spaceship on that planet and somebody else flies in, they get the same trigger that says load 350R at this location, because that's where that 350R is.
Yeah.
And so if that's the way they're going to do it, then yes, it would entirely be possible for us to have a base on a planet if they allow us the ability to own a base, Yeah, and exactly. So it will be really interesting to see how they go with that.
Yeah, Shadow Spirit, a comment. Normally we just say this for after show for anybody's hanging out, but it is pertinent to what you're saying, Eric, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. He said, Mitauchi, but aren't they going to do everything Eric McKetton's talking about? By not sending the info until you get closer, but don't forget that there is an economy server constantly running everything in the background. So wouldn't that be a solution to all this? I think the problem isn't necessarily the fact that they're only sending you information when you're in relevant proximity. It's more about what your computer retains in memory and stuff in there. And as we all know, I mean, there's no way for a game to say, hey, Windows, dump this out. Yeah. It just doesn't do it. And that's something on the platform. So until Chris Roberts makes Star Citizen OS, we're all going to have to deal with the binds of Microsoft. And I think that's the main issue we're dealing with there. I think you're right, 100% Shadow. I think you're going to deal with the fact that they're only giving us the data when it's close and it's relevant to us. They're doing that through the procedural generation of the worlds, all the other aspects to it. But at the same time, even the economy server running in the background and stuff, that's not fully relevant except in localized areas when you're in proximity of that economy or interfacing with that economy. Right. But it's our machines that won't release the data.
Well, having more RAM in your system is going to help you. That's why 16 is better than 8.
Yeah, 64 is going to be on my next one eventually.
but there is still going to be a hard limit that CryEngine can handle for RAM, how much it can access. Yep. There's also going to be a hard limit that Windows is going to allow it to access. Yep. And that's kind of what Mitauchi was talking about, is that unless Chris Roberts and Cloud Imperium writes an operating system that allows them direct hardware access, there's always going to be those limits, and then they have to take those limits and base them around the law of averages. What's the average gamer in our market going to be willing to spend and build this machine to run this? And they originally said 8 gigs, but I think they're getting ready to upgrade that to 16 because
I think they're going to have to.
8 gigs doesn't work. I had it running on my i5 with 8 gigs, and Windows would stop the program saying, you're out of memory, I'm closing this program. I kicked it up to 16, never happened again, it ran great.
Yeah. Yep. And we have to also think, in addition to the 8 gigs, most people that are saying, hey, I run 8 gigs, I run fine, they're also running a 6 gig or 4 gig graphics card on top of that. So when they think 8 gigs, it's really 12, it's really at least 10 gigs and stuff. And I know as a streamer dealing with the broadcasting software, that's a whole nother ball of wax there. What you're talking about, Sal, that's a whole nother amount of RAM you have to deal with there on that. So.
Yeah, I love it when people say, if you stop running all that stuff in the background, you get better performance. Well, then you wouldn't be watching me.
Yeah, you wouldn't be watching me at all. It's like, all you got to just do that. Just shut it down. No problem, guys. Yeah, right now, it's like I can bring up my procedure. I'm using 13.3 gigs of RAM right now. So,
you're not even playing the game.
Yeah,
there are ways around Windows limiting the RAM, and there are tricks that people can do, especially with DirectX, and supposedly DirectX 12 is even better for that. But they are just tricks, and they're not infallible. And oftentimes those tricks lead to memory leaks, and you see it happen. A lot of the big games out there, that's one of their ways to get around performance issues, is just to force more into RAM than they're supposed to be able to, and it can cause memory leaks and other issues. But what you were talking about, Shadowspear, is actually called a server-tracked objects. And that's where a separate server is running in the background to just track all this stuff, and they are going to be doing that. I mean, they haven't said it, but I can't even guess.
Actually,
how
he
did
because Chris Roberts talked about it, and it was one of the interviews. I can't remember the long-haired guy is like Gamer Nexus or whatever. He did an interview with Chris Roberts, and he talked about every single object in the game has an ID code. And so he said he used the exact example of a scarf. If you wear a scarf or you buy or create a scarf in the game, that is the one scarf like it. There is no other, even if everybody else makes red scarves. In other games, like EVE Online or some of these other games, they use the same metric. But in games that release it, it's like, well, every time you jump through a gate or you load or you go into another instance, it recreates all those assets. It's just a generic code. In Star Citizen, that's the exact one.
Well, that's to prevent duping, because you have the same. It's basically a serial number or a GUID, a programming term. It's just a long random string of characters, and you can have billions and billions and billions of them. So everyone's unique. I do that all the time with stuff. You got to have a unique identifier, and then you can run your jobs at night to make sure there's no duplicate or something. Yeah. Because you could duplicate from the lag, like trading. During lag or something, you could duplicate stuff in almost any game if you really try hard enough.
Well, and not only does it prevent duplicating, but it actually takes some of the load off of if you split it into two servers, you have your instance server and you have your tracking server. Your tracking server is keeping track of all these objects, these people by their IDs, etc., their location in game. The instance server is then taking the information that is relevant to that instance from the tracking server and only loading that. So that's less work the instance server has to do, because it doesn't have to double check and say, okay, McKetton is now in Crusader.
And we have to recreate all the shit. Yeah.
It doesn't have to check to see if I'm wearing a scarf, because the tracking server says McKetton is in Crusader and he's wearing a scarf. And so the instance server says, okay, everybody out there, McKetton's wearing it. He's in this area.
He's wearing a scarf. That's all. He's wearing the specific scarf they got from his aunt. It's not a replica. It's not something else. It's the same one over and over again.
It reduces the amount of tasks being done by the server that's directly interacting with us, which then reduces the amount of information we have to receive and send to the server. And it's all these little things they do that can turn something that is otherwise impossible to a possibility, and now every day seems much more like a definite a goal, or a definite attainable goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you multiply that times how many ever 1,000 people are playing the game, and they're constantly jumping in new instance, and they have to regenerate the whole thing every single time, reference the chart and all that, rather than just tracking the same static objects from instance to instance, it's so much more load.
And to give you an idea of how much we're talking about, I don't know if Cato, I'm pretty sure Stoutman has not done this yet. I don't know if Cato or you or Mitauchi have actually taken a look at the XMLs for just one ship. But one ship has anywhere between hundreds to thousands of individual components and joints that are connecting these components, and pipelines and pipeline connectors, all with their each unique identification. And right now, part of our loading problems is that we are loading that every time we go into a match, every time somebody else loads into that match, every time we go onto the server, whatnot. That's those stutters, and when somebody jumps in,
it needs to be kept in RAM if you use it very often, and they're not doing that often enough.
Right, they're not keeping it in RAM, and one of the reasons why they're not keeping it in RAM is they can't predict what's coming right now, and that's where server tracking comes into effect. Is that if the server knows that Cato's about ready to jump into the same area I am, it can tell me to then preload Cato's stuff so that when he jumps in, there isn't that stutter and weights. And
well,
I'm not also.
I'm talking about when you go into an array and there's only 5 or 6 different pirate ships. Those should always be in your RAM. I'm not talking about another player. That's going to be that's going to be unique. You can't predict that, like you said. But the common NPCs need to be in there all the time. There's no reason not to.
Yeah,
it's not that much. It's not that much memory.
Yeah, I think the part of the problem is a lot of the NPC ships are the exact models of what the players are doing. They're not sub animation like in other games. You're physically rendering the exact same amount of load now, and that's another thing. Chris
down
talked
to a
about,
person inside of it.
Yeah. Chris talked about originally like, oh, this will be easily scalable because you have players, but then you have NPCs and they won't take nearly as much bandwidth as that. At this point in the PTU, they take absolutely as much RAM, as much data as a player. So think about that. You say max 16, you jump everybody to these comm arrays, they all spawn 6, you all of a sudden had 70 people in a server. Yeah. And, so it's 16 players because we don't know what the players are going to do when you go to a
and then we're all going, why the hell are we doing 1 frame per second and it's moving like molasses? And that's exactly
and
what's
everybody's
happening.
going, well, I don't understand why they can only get 16. It's because they're making like 6 more individuals appear at every comm array all the time. And that's the reason, like what Stoutman was referring to, why they can't be there all the time. Because the way those players are rendered, they're actual players, even though they're just NPCs sitting there. And so you wouldn't be able to do it.
But again, one of the ways that they're going to get around that is right now, if I jump into a comm array, I'm just moving to a different spot in the same instance. Yeah. But in the future, that comm array is going to be its own instance. Yeah. So when I jump into there, only I and anybody else who happens to be there are going to see those NPCs and interact with them. Everybody else, all they're going to know about those NPCs is the basic information the server reports back for whatever the server needs to know about it.
And I think that's where they're going with it. They're going to talk about in the next phase of the zoning stuff, and what we're leading up to here is dynamically created zones. Zones are defined by grid. Grid is what I perceive with the other players there. So if grid is XYZ, 6 people jump in, this is now its own zone. And that's how it's going to reduce the lag in the overall instance around other people, because now we're in a zone around a comm array. So it shouldn't impact us over at Korea or the guys back at Port Olisar or whatever else, because you've created this larger space zone of it. So I think that's where they're getting to. They just haven't got all the data down yet on it. So that's the hope anyway.
They're getting there. They're just doing a little bit at a time. And remember, this is live. They got to keep it running for us at this point. We're used to it and we're demanding it. So
yeah, that's true.
They can only make so many changes at once.
This is the one bit of insider information I've received. It was actually from Stoutman and his brother-in-law, and it's really big information, guys. Get ready for this. They have only shown us a tiny fraction of what they have completed so far. That's what Brian said when he was in my chat channel with Stoutman the other night. They've only shown us a tiny fraction of what they've completed.
They barely got anything in there. I mean, it's like 2% of what they were working on. It's nothing. It's nothing.
We hear this all the time, though. The people that go over to Foundry 42 and take tours and stuff, they're under these NDAs. They come out, they're like, guys, you know nothing.
Yeah,
you're pretty much Jon Snow. Like,
every time
nothing.
somebody that does a tour, they come back and they say, "Don't worry, trust us. Trust me. I can't tell you what I saw, but it's getting done." Every time.
Yeah.
I want that tour, damn it. How much do I get to pay for that one?
We'll just go to Germany and
let them know a couple months in advance just to make sure they can schedule you in.
Oh, speaking about special access, I finally got my card in the mail, so I got my concierge card there.
You got it?
Do you got to order that thing, or do they just send it to you because you're a concierge?
Yeah, you got to order it.
First, you had to spend the $1,000. Then you have to pay the $10 to get the metal card sent to you from China, which had to go through customs, by the way.
I've been wondering because
is it too late to order a card?
I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
People talked about their concierge cards, and I was like, I've been a concierge for over a year. Why don't I have a card? I didn't know I had to buy it.
I'm almost a double concierge with buying stuff for raffles.
Well,
that's exactly how
I have to thank the viewers, because between all the people supporting my channel and all the viewers and stuff, all the giveaways we did, it added up to about $2,000 last year. So
that's how I became a Grand Admiral.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I'm not rich enough to afford this on my own, but I spent the $10 of my own money to get it. So don't worry, guys.
That's without adding in the the website giveaways and all the Steam giveaways and everything.
And the guys
else.
who just popped in and say, "Hey, man, let me do this ship" and all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, there's been a lot of great people on the stream, and that just goes to show how great the community is and how great everything else is going. All right, guys, we've been doing this about an hour and a half. I don't want to drain it out anymore. It's great conversation, but we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. And, we really want to make sure everybody out there follows Eric McKetton on his stream. Definitely check out Stoutman. Cato, whenever he's on, be sure to check him out as well, because we're going to get him to get on and stream. He's not just doing screen tests.
And I will be streaming tonight, Friday night. I normally don't, but since there's a new patch out, whenever there's a new patch, I stream. It's just the way it is. So I got to take the D. I got to take it hard. So I'm going to do it tonight.
There you go.
I already got it downloaded and tested. I'm ready to go after we're done here.
Just nobody show any bar scenes or anything, or any Hornet girls or pinups or anything.
Lord. This Hornet is now flagged as Star Citizen porn, I think.
Yeah,
so.
we're going to have to start a list because we don't want to do it.
I was not marked as a mature channel. That may have been it. It gets caught right away now. It's in their database.
Yeah, so be very careful, guys. Stupid. It's entirely, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, especially with some of the context of some of the other streamers we've seen, what they do on there. So showing a cartoon animation statically on a wall is apparently a bad deal. But, hey.
I don't mind the notoriety. I'll take the publicity.
There you go. All right, guys.
I didn't try for it. It just kind of happened.
It just kind of happened that way.
But it was a two-hour nightmare to get it fixed.
Yeah. Again, we'll be doing this every Friday night. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Eric and Stout back on when we can. Friday nights at 10 p.m. CST, and we'll be discussing every week. Just hang out with that. If
I'm available, I'll be here. Sure.
Awesome. If you guys want afterwards, I'm happy to hop in people's Discord stuff. We can get some fly time in together and do all that too a little bit later. So, but until then, guys, we're gonna go ahead and head out. I'll be doing the after show stream after this. Stoutman will be streaming. Eric's gonna be streaming. Everybody's gonna be streaming. So check everybody out.
I won't be streaming for another hour and a half at least. Just so plenty of time to go try
now. So
plenty of time to go try to steal that Titan from Stoutman that he's giving away.
There we go. We'll go find him.
That's at midnight. That's in like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we'll be around. We'll be around.
So, but there's going to be flare before then, a bunch of flare before then.
Definitely.
There you go. Yep.
So come on over if you want.
There you go. All right, guys.
All right. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. We'll see you later. Have a good night, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week on the Space Bro Show.
Thank you. Good night.
Yep.